Hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Shireen Bhan. The headlines we're tracking this evening. Aggressive selling drags the Sensex and the Nifty 1% into the red. A higher dollar, rising crude prices and surging bond yields weigh on sentiment. The key indices close higher for the fourth week running. The rupee weakens as the dollar rallies globally to a one-month high. Cryptocurrencies under pressure as global trading volumes dropped by 10%. Ethereum sees a drop of nearly 20% ahead of a major upgrade to its protocol. The government cuts the windfall gains tax on domestic crude oil but hikes the tax imposed on the export of diesel. Also imposes a tax of 2 rupees per litre on aviation turbine fuel. 6 states, including Maharashtra, Andhra, Bihar, have been allowed to buy and sell power on exchanges after clearing dues. 7 states, including Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, remain barred from the exchanges as they're yet to clear dues.
I think the trend towards online is just it's explosive and it's not going to change.
Adobe CEO Shantanu Narayan says the digital boom is here to stay. He's betting big on India and also upbeat about the opportunities presented by the metaverse. CBI raids the residence of Delhi's Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia and 20 other locations in connection with a probe into alleged irregularities in the state's excise policy. Sisodia welcomes the CBI, adding nothing will come out of the case. The police detained some AAP supporters and imposed Section 144 around Sisodia's residence. Apple revealed security flaws that could allow hackers to take complete control of devices like the iPhone, the iPad and the Macs. Releases software updates to fix the issue but does not disclose how many users may have been affected. Well, let's start the action on the Lal Street. The market snapping the 8-day winning streak with financial and real estate stocks leading the losses. So all sectoral indices closing in the red for the day. But the Sensex and the Nifty managed to post marginal gains for the week, making it the 5th consecutive week of gains for equities. Anuj is standing by to wrap up the market action for us. Anuj, closing in the red this Friday, but continue to gain ground week on week.
Well, bad day for the market. After seeing buy on dips play out for virtually every day, today was the day when the dip was not bought. And aggressive selling today, the market in fact closing close to the low point of the day. Today's decline essentially was macro. You had higher dollar, higher Brent and higher bond yields in the US, all of which are equity negative, especially emerging market negative, and that's what you saw. And market leading sector, the banks, that led the decline. In fact, if you take a look at the financials, all of them and heavyweights were down. Bajaj Finance and Finserv, SBI and SBI Life, Kotak, HDFC Twins, ICICI Bank. So across the board, there was quite a bit of selling pressure from the financial names. Autos, the other space where we saw some profit taking after the recent move. So names like Tata Motors, Hero MotoCorp and Mahindra were also down. The other part of the market, the heavyweights, non-banking heavyweights, non-banking, non-IT, Reliance, Lever and ITC, they were also down quite a bit. So it was almost a bit of a Murphy's Law. Everything was putting pressure on the market. A couple of stocks stood out though, Adani Ports and Larsen & Toubro. In the F&O space, some large losers. PVR, clearly the recent spate of box office duds is not helping. Granules, DLF, all these stocks were down. So today the momentum has been halted. Will be interesting to see if it's a one-off or some kind of reversal. We'll find out next week.
All right, we will know if this is a one-off or the start of a reversal. Thanks very much, Anuj, for joining us. But let's take a look at the currency market action. The rupee weakening against the US dollar as it rallied globally to a one-month high. The currency opened low at 79.70 to the dollar and closed the session at the same level. And in the cryptocurrency market, all major coins are under pressure as global trading volumes have dropped by 10%. Ethereum has seen a drop of nearly 20% ahead of a major upgrade to its protocol. The second largest crypto will move from a proof-of-work protocol that relies on miners to mine coins to a proof-of-stake setup that relies on coin owners to validate transactions and earn rewards for doing so. Manisha is standing by to make sense of this for us. Manisha, what exactly is going on?
Well, let me start with what has happened in August. It has been a good month actually after the previous quarter where we saw a very sharp sell-off in across cryptocurrencies. But if you look at the markets today, there is a bit of a wobbliness coming back. Most of the altcoins, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., have seen a decline anywhere between 7 to 8%. You also have seen a very sharp decline when it comes to the meme coins. Something like a Dogecoin or a Shiba Inu are down nearly 14 to 15% as well. When you look at the global market capitalization, well, we have seen a 3% decline in that one over overnight, inching back towards that $1 trillion mark. Total crypto market volume also saw a decline by nearly 10% in the overnight markets. The other thing worth noticing is that the Bitcoin dominance has gone down by 40%. Until up to a couple of years back, it used to be as high as 60, even 70% at some instances there, but we have seen that decline. That's about the cryptocurrencies. Coming to Ethereum now, the volume trade here also has gone down by 18% in last 24 hours here. As you mentioned, yes, Ethereum is set to undergo a major change, a merger from nearly proof of work to proof of stake is what it would be. This has been delayed quite a bit of times in last 1 year, but we do have dates now that this could happen on September 15, 16 is when the date is set. And yes, the markets are jittery about that, whether you should be buying it in spot, selling it in futures, how do you deal with it? Should you be keeping it in exchanges or on your wallets? There have been various conversations going on about this. What we have seen right now is people do not understand on how it would impact Ethereum, because we have seen Ethereum being bought, but is it going to be buy the rumors, sell the news kind of a scenario? That also is something that is not very clear, and that's exactly the reason you have seen more selling come in case of Ethereum. The volumes go down, the open interest clearly increasing on the sell side here is how really seems to be dealing it there. The other important thing is that Ethereum is the base when it comes to all smart contracts, almost everything when it comes to NFTs, decentralized finance, decentralized applications, all of that is situated on Ethereum. How will it change the work? Will it change the gas fees as well? Are another set of debates that seem to be happening. But one thing is for sure, whatever happens would be good in sense of speed and security. But whether it is good right now in sense of a cryptocurrency trading, clearly not.
Okay, Manisha, many thanks. Crude oil prices, meanwhile, have seen some recovery on the hope of strong demand after a larger than expected drawdown in U.S. crude stocks. The drop in U.S. inventories brushed off worries about a global economic slowdown denting oil demand. Now, some relief for domestic crude refiners. The government has cut the windfall gains tax on domestic crude to 13,000 rupees per ton. However, the export tax on diesel and aviation turbine fuel has been hiked in the fortnightly review. Sonal Bhutra joins us now with the impact this will have on oil companies. Sonal.
Thanks a lot for that. Well, yes, in the third fortnightly review, the government has gone ahead and they have cut cess on crude production, which is positive for these oil producers like ONGC and Oil India. It has cut cess on crude, reduced to 13,000 rupees per ton versus 17,750 rupees per ton earlier. However, on the negative side, they've actually gone ahead and increased export duties on both ATF and diesel by 2 rupees per litre. So now for ATF, it stands at 2 rupees per litre. For diesel, it stands at 7 rupees per litre. The zero export duty on petrol stays, and these rates come in effect from 19th August, that is today. CLSA has written a note on these companies where they say that yes, it is good that the government is continuing with the fortnight revision, and the cut in crude cess implies post-tax realization of $77 per barrel versus $76 per barrel. And if we talk about the previous two resets, that was around $71 per barrel. So it comes as a relief because government is okay with realizations between $75 to $80 per barrel. What it also says is right now these stocks are really cheap. They are considering realizations of around $50 per barrel. So there is a position of upside from current levels. The negative surprise is that ATF and diesel export duty was increased. This would mean negative for the likes of Reliance Industries, where the impact would increase to $2.2 per barrel, and that is something that will be taken negatively by these refiners.
Sonal, many thanks for joining us. Now, from oil and gas to electricity, yesterday 13 states were barred from buying or selling power on exchanges after they failed to clear dues. Today, 6 of those states, including Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Jharkhand, Bihar, Chhattisgarh and Manipur, have cleared their dues and have been allowed to trade. States like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Rajasthan and Madhya Pradesh continue to remain barred from power exchanges as they are yet to clear the dues.
Very wise decision, because at the end of the day, 6 of the states could liquidate their outstanding and they were allowed to participate in the market. So that is a major development. And the other 7 also are trying hard so that they can liquidate this outstanding and they can participate in the market. So structural changes in the market is required, and these are some of the major changes which can bring a lot of discipline and financial prudence in the market. I mean, all the outstanding what we are discussing are mostly related to long-term or medium-term power procurement.
And here is a check of some of the other headlines this evening. The U.S. drug regulator has issued 6 observations for Sun Pharma's Mohali plant. CNBC-TV18 has accessed those observations made by the US FDA. It claims that sampling and test procedures were not reported properly and that the company failed to review discrepancies. Mahindra Group is exploring the acquisition of General Motors' Talegaon plant in Maharashtra. We learned from sources that talks between the two companies are at very early stages and no decision has been taken yet. This comes over a month after General Motors' deal to sell the plant to China's Great Wall Motor fell through. The Talegaon plant is also closer to Mahindra's Chakan facility. Shares of multiplex chains PVR and Inox Leisure came under pressure this after a non-profit group called Consumer Unity and Trust Society approached the Competition Commission of India against the proposed merger of the two companies. This non-profit alleges that the deal would have anti-competitive effects on the film exhibition industry. Remember, on the 27th of March, PVR and Inox Leisure announced a merger to create the largest multiplex chain in the country with a network of over 1,500 screens. The Adani Group is likely to have received the market regulator's approval to launch an open offer worth $3.8 billion for Ambuja and ACC. Bloomberg reports that Adani will offer 385 rupees for every share of Ambuja and 2,300 rupees for every share of ACC. The government will kickstart roadshows to sell Hotel Ashok starting next week. The options given by prospective bidders during the roadshow will be taken to the Union Cabinet for approval. Sapna joins us now with more. Sapna, this is not a disinvestment, this is monetization. Take us through the plan.
Absolutely right. A huge difference. The ownership will continue to remain with the government, but the land and the property of Ashok will be monetized for the private players to come in and play a major role on that front. So number one, of course, starting coming Monday, the first roadshow takes off. Remains to be seen what kind of bidders come forward. There have been reports that ITC and Indian Hotels are interested. Well, of course, Indian Hotels also holds stake in ITDC. So I think that would be a natural fallout, but remains to be seen how it goes. So first roadshow on Monday, and then there'll be a series more. Post that, we are given to understand that it's only then that a cabinet nod will be sought in terms of the monetization plan. Whatever the bidders suggest will be taken on board and the final call will be taken by the cabinet. Once that's done, the process then moves on just like the way it happens in disinvestment. There will be bids that will be called in for appointment of transaction advisors and legal advisors to actually run the monetization basically. Take in the technical bids, call in the financial bids, and then it remains to be seen how this really goes forward. Having said that, there are a couple of interesting points to be kept in mind. There is already a disclosure that has been filed by ITDC very recently to the stock exchanges, and this disclosure contains a lot of details on what was the monetization plan that was suggested by the earlier advisor that was appointed just to look at a broad framework. So number one, the PPP and operate, manage and develop model that has been suggested with a 60-year lease for the Hotel Ashok itself, and apart from that, commercial property of Hotel Ashok to be managed separately again by private players, maybe in the PPP model, with a lease tenure of around 99 odd years. So these are the sessions that have come in by the early advisors. It remains to be seen what kind of interest bidders show on this, but it's going to be important going forward.
All right. The expectation is that the large hotel chains are likely to throw their hat into the ring. Thanks very much, Sapna, for joining us. The big newsmaker this evening. Adobe's global CEO Shantanu Narayan believes the explosive growth that we're seeing in the digital economy is here to stay. Speaking exclusively to me, he made it clear that the genie cannot be put back in the bottle. Adobe has big plans for India. Narayan is also upbeat on the opportunities presented by the metaverse. Take a look. This is an interesting number that I picked up from your earnings call for the last quarter, where you talk about the fact that consumers have spent $1 billion more online in May of this year compared to April, and year-to-date shoppers have spent over $377 billion online. That's a 9% growth year-on-year. So you believe that despite the uncertainties, despite the inflationary pressures, this is likely to continue, this trend line?
There's no question. The genie is not going back in the bottle in terms of how people engage with customers. And what you're referring to, Shireen, is the third business that we have, which is the digital experience business or the experience cloud. And we have this unprecedented view of what people are doing digitally because our business strategy there is enabling businesses to power their businesses digitally. And so the Adobe Digital Index report is an ability for us to aggregate what's happening. And, I think people were always looking at, is the growth accelerating?
Yeah.
But the reality is that more and more of this stuff is happening online, what they were buying changed. And, we have really good insight into what's happening with inflation. And certainly, I think people moved a little bit more towards groceries as well as more, things that they needed for their running of their houses. But I think the trend towards online is just, it's explosive, and it's not going to change. We're one of the few companies that is still, growing quite extensively, and that growth is disproportionately happening in India. We're a smaller company in terms of just the number of employees, but that doesn't change the skill set or the importance of talent in India. And India will just continue to be a huge place. We just finished a new building in Bangalore. We're building in Noida. So I think that just reflects our excitement on the, employee and the skill and talent base here in India. I think as it relates to the business opportunity, that is a little bit more nascent. And you have to look at it by all three businesses that we're in. One of the areas I'm most excited about, honestly, is what we call our creative business. And we're trying to unleash creativity for all. And when you think about what's happening in terms of the amount of content that's being created in India, the importance of education, the importance of digital literacy and, creative content, that's an area where the explosion of the number of people, we have this product called Adobe Express. I want 1 billion people in India using that product to, communicate the idea that they have, because everybody has a story to tell. So I think you have to look at each of your businesses. You have to recognize where you are on the S-curve. Some of them are perhaps, smaller than our global businesses, but the trajectory in the second derivative is what excites me. The metaverse, on the other hand, is actually very interesting. And it's interesting for the simple reason that the way I like to describe it is more and more things that you did in the physical world, you're going to do in the virtual world. Whether it's experiencing travel, whether it's experiencing medical care, whether it's, transacting business, whether it's doing online commerce. Now that's being labeled the metaverse. And so the content creation and the interactivity that you have to do on the metaverse is an order of magnitude more difficult, because you now have to not only create the ability to have this immersive experience, but you have to have the ability to interact with, as they say abroad, the avatars or whatever. And so Adobe has this unique role to play where we're telling all of these brands, this is how you start to dip your toe in the water. This is how you create a brand. And what's happening, unfortunately, right now in the metaverse is you have multiple worlds. And so, these brands have to decide which world am I betting on. But I think the whole content creation process is something that we can help them with. We have a white paper.
Well, that's Adobe Shantanu Narayan, and he may have studied in what could arguably be one of the best schools in the world. He's an alumnus of the Hyderabad Public School, founded in 1923. This private school has produced not one, but 3 top tech CEOs who were pivotal figures in the Silicon Valley. The CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, and the former CEO of MasterCard, Ajay Banga, also studied in the same school with Adobe, Shantanu Narayan. Another illustrious alumnus is Prem Vatsa, the founder of Fairfax. Shantanu Narayan recounted his time in school when Prem Vatsa's father was the principal.
I think the all-round education that we all had, and as you know, Prem Vatsa's father was actually our principal. And so, I don't know. It was magical. It was a magical time.
Do you talk about this? Have you, I'm sure have you discussed what it could have been about that environment?
Well, I think, there were 2 things for me in particular that stood out. The first was, it wasn't just about academics. It was so much about academics and extracurricular activities. I was the editor of the school magazine. I was the captain of the debate team. You had to play sports every evening, in which case you learned about team. And I think the second part was leadership. We had the prefect system and stuff like that. So I think, they were, at the end of the day, just trying to provide you with all of the tools that you needed. But it's... I know people have said if there's a way to bottle that, right?
Yes.
That would be nice. But it was an amazing place.
Well, Shireen, I got to tell you, the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, MasterCard, Ajay Banga, Adobe, Shantanu Narayan, and myself, we had one commonality. We all went to the same school, Hyderabad Public School in India, in Hyderabad. And my dad who's long passed away now. But my dad was the principal of that school. He was vice principal and he was a teacher, and he ended his career by being the principal of that school. So I have a bias to those CEOs.
And you can catch that entire conversation at 5:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. right here on CNBC TV18 on the Global Dialogue. It's time for us to head into a break, but up next, the CBI raids the residence of Delhi's Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia and 20 other locations in connection with the probe into the alleged irregularities in the state's excise policy. That and more when we return. The big national story, the Central Bureau of Investigation has raided the residence of Delhi's Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia and 20 other locations as it probes alleged irregularities in the state's excise policy. The Aam Aadmi Party and the Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal have strongly condemned the raids. Abhimanyu Sharma joining us now with the details. Abhi.
CBI has carried out raids at 21 locations in Delhi NCR in the Delhi excise policy case. Raids have also been conducted at 6 other locations across various states. The BJP and the Aam Aadmi Party are trading barbs at each other and have turned the issue into a political slugfest, even as CBI is carrying out its probe in the Delhi excise policy case 2021, in which the registration of an FIR was based on a recommendation made by Delhi's Lieutenant Governor over the alleged irregularities in formulation as well as execution of the Delhi excise policy. While the Aam Aadmi Party has claimed no wrongdoing on the part of the Delhi government as well as Manish Sisodia, the BJP has accused Manish Sisodia of corruption and has claimed that various private parties who were beneficiaries of the Delhi excise policy unduly gained due to various benefits which were given by Sisodia. It remains to be seen what more details will be unearthed as part of the probe, even as CBI has accused 4 public servants, including Manish Sisodia and Delhi's former excise commissioner, of wrongdoing in this case. It remains to be seen what more evidence will be brought to light as part of an ongoing investigation by the CBI.
पिछले 7 साल में भी मनीष जी के ऊपर न जाने कितनी बार रेड हुई है। ये पहली रेड नहीं है, पहले भी कई बार रेड कर चुके, कई झूठे केस कर चुके मनीष जी के ऊपर, मेरे ऊपर कई बार रेड कर चुके, सतिंदर जैन पे, कैलाश गहलोत पे, हमारे कितने लोगों पे ये लोग रेड कर चुके, कुछ नहीं मिला, अभी भी कुछ नहीं मिलेगा।
केजरीवाल मॉडल को खत्म करने के लिए भाजपा ने हेल्थ मिनिस्टर को, हमारे स्वास्थ्य मंत्री सत्येंद्र जैन को जेल में बंद कर दिया, जो कई महीनों से जेल में बंद है, और मनीष सिसोदिया जी पर आज रेड कर उन्हें भी जेल में बंद करने की तैयारी है कि शिक्षा और स्वास्थ्य के इनके मॉडल को बर्बाद करो, इनके मंत्रियों को गिरफ्तार करो ताकि केजरीवाल मॉडल बर्बाद हो जाए, अरविंद केजरीवाल खत्म हो जाए। यह भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सोच है, प्रधानमंत्री जी की सोच है।
जैसी सीबीआई ने जांच को शुरू किया, उन्होंने लिकर पॉलिसी को खत्म कर दिया। तो अगर आपकी लिकर पॉलिसी ठीक थी तो आपने उसको क्यों चेंज किया? आप क्यों अपना पुरानी पॉलिसी के ऊपर में जा रहे हैं? और अगर आपकी पॉलिसी ठीक नहीं थी तो अगर आप उसमें दोषी हैं, या तो वो राजस्व का नुकसान हुआ तो भी दोषी हैं, या आपने लिकर माफियाओं से पैसे लिए तो भी दोषी हैं, तो सारी बातें सामने आ जाएंगी।
In international news, the Ukrainian President Zelensky and Turkey's President Erdogan have held talks with the Secretary General of the United Nations. Zelensky has raised concerns over the relentless shelling by Russian forces near Europe's largest nuclear plant.
Russia must immediately and without any conditions withdraw its troops from the territory of the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant. Stop all provocations, stop all shelling. Let's not forget that Russia is putting everyone on the brink of a global radiation disaster. They agreed with the Secretary General on a possible IAEA mission at the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant in a legal way through the territory free from the occupiers.
Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the former president of Sri Lanka, who fled the country in July amid mass protests, has applied for a U.S. green card, according to reports. He's currently living in exile in Singapore. He was a former U.S. citizen and given up his citizenship in 2019 to contest the presidential elections. Apple has revealed security flaws that could allow hackers to take complete control of its devices like the iPhone, the iPad and the iMac. Releases software updates to fix the issue but does not disclose how many users may have been affected. And with that, it is time for us to wrap up this edition of Business 360. Thanks very much for watching. But before we go, we'll be joined by Sonia Shenoy, Anuj Singhal, Prashant Nair and Ekta Batra on our Friday favorite, the Editors Roundtable, coming up right after this break.